Hello, bonsai friends. This is Evan Pardue of Underhill Bonsai, and welcome to episode 54 of Little Things for Bonsai People. And this time I am joined by my two co-hosts, starting with Mike Lane of Kitsune Bonsai. How's it going, Mike?
Hey, what's up? It's good. How are you guys?
And then also Carmen Leskobiansky. How's it going, Carmen?
Pretty good.
Pretty awesome. Today we're going to be talking about a couple of things. We're going to bounce around a little bit, but I figured we'd talk about wire a little bit, some aluminum versus copper and their applications and why and how. And then also we'll touch on Japanese quince or Chinese quince. I think they're a little versatile, but they're slightly different there. And then since Carmen gets to work with a lot of Chojubai, I figured that would be a good little thing to kind of dip into there. But before we get to that, I do need to mention that our podcast is sponsored by our amazing patrons over at patreon.com/little things for bonsai people. Head over there and become a bonsai best bud and hang out in the Discord with these amazing people. Starting off our list with Tori Solis, Vicky Alf, Boyd Stelbro, Ricky Ruins, Joshua Bentley, Stappy Chappers, Joel Jenkins, Justin Knight, Backyard Bonsai Australia, Greenwich Gardens, Taylor Peacock, Chase Petite, Austin Atkins, Karen Codswell, You Ruin Bonsai Garden, Lewis Torres, AC Castle, Bonsai Marine, Joss Potts, Chris Fossoon, Timothy Arsenal, Randy Bennett, and we have a couple of brand spanking new Bonsai Best Buds. I hope I say this one right. Victrina Ridgeway, is that right?
Yeah, Victrina. Mm-hmm.
Victrina? Okay, mm-hmm. Victrina Ridgeway.
Yay, Victrina!
And LaRon's Bonsai Yard.
Nice.
Thank you guys so much for becoming $5 tier Bonsai Best Buds. That's awesome. You guys are supporting our show, helping us build our channel and also build our show. We're on YouTube right now. Go check that out. That's why I said channel. And we're working on yeah, we got episodes on YouTube right now.
We do?
Very exciting.
I think our entire show is on there right now. Matt's been
like video.
So now we can say hit subscribe, ring that bell. Woo!
Is it the video that coincides with it or just the audio?
We are currently working on getting a video person. So we'll eventually get like a video thing where you see our heads kind of floating.
That's great. Oh my God.
But that's still in the works, but the episodes are on YouTube. So we're doing great there.
I'm going to get one of those hanging mics.
You should. So you can actually see it. So it looks really proper, or one of those armatures. So you look really digital.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then I'll have to get a streamer background. I'll have to get like a bookshelf with all my knicknacks and my Pokemon figures, my Magic the Gathering collectibles and stuff. Just to show off how cool I am outside of Bonsai.
You're so cool.
But yeah, we do have two other $1 tier patrons that jumped on this week as well. We got Micah Rouse and Ben Creole. I hope I said that one right too. But $1 tier patrons are also like a little seasoning, a little spice on top. Thank you guys so much for subscribing. We do have another tier that I just added. It's $30 a month. I know it sounds like a lot, but you get a t-shirt. And whatever t-shirt is in print, and that's available in your size at the time, we will ship it straight out to you. And also, how about a 30-minute session with me, Carmen, or Mike? Not a bad deal. But it's going to be schedule dependent, though. So
via Zoom.
Can they have all three of us, or is
Zoom.
it just with one of us?
Just whoever for the moment.
That sounds good too.
Yeah, I like that we're finding out about this on air.
I know, yeah.
Same time as everybody else.
I forgot that I put it on there. But let me tell you guys.
But it's a great idea.
Yeah. If you want to become a $30 patron, I know it's a lot more than the $5, but I mean the value's there. And 30 minutes is equivalent to most bonsai professionals' consultation.
And you get Evan's personal phone number.
Yeah, no.
You do. Yes.
No, we're not going to do all that.
All the time. He loves when you do that.
Text him late
at night. Get the time zones wrong. We can have all kinds of fun with it. But yeah, we're also going to mention really quick that our editor Matt O'Donnell, he cleans up our show, makes us sound smart, makes us really enjoyable to listen to. You can go over to mattodonnell.com, fill a contact form, and start your own podcast show with Matt. He also is an audio engineer. He plays set bass for bands in Nashville, Tennessee. He's an all-around awesome guy. It's in the script to say it every single time. And also, yeah, we mentioned the t-shirts. Go over to underhillbonsaistore.com, click on the Little Things tab, and see what shirts we have available. So Yeah, let's talk about wire a little bit, guys. How y'all feel about wire?
I feel great
good
about
it.
wire.
Yeah, I like it.
As general consensus that we love wire.
We do.
Oh,
I
yeah.
like that.
So, starting with, I guess, with Mike, kind of give me how you use wire and what copper versus aluminum kind of argument you could make, and just like a summary how you feel about that.
Yeah, I use aluminum much more than I use copper because I work mostly in obviously in a tropical, subtropical climate, so things grow very fast, and that's really the number one dictating factor for me is the rate of growth. It's costly to change out copper at the rate that I would need to, and it's much cheaper to use aluminum. With copper, though, I feel that it's superior in just about every way. I really do like it a lot. I think its number one selling point for me is the preservation of work. So I think wire is basically like a splint. So if you break your arm, which is what we're kind of doing to the branch, is you then need to splint it and keep it from moving while it heals. And so if there's any kind of movement while that's happening, if you bump the branch and the branch compresses on itself, well, that it kind of messes with that healing ability, or even worse, heals in a way that we don't want it to heal. And so I found using like 1.0 aluminum on junipers is useless because a gust of wind will blow that stuff, deform that stuff. So 20 millimeter copper, you can hit it with your hand and it just bounces right back into position for the most part. And so I think preserving the design especially on things that need to not be moved for a long period of time, like junipers or conifers, I think copper is by far better. With that said, Laurent, when I worked with him, high level professional, refused to use copper, even on conifers, would not use it, and said it limited the movement that you could get on the tree, which I don't disagree with. I do think it's easier to get movement with aluminum wire, but I think a lot of the Japanese styles kind of don't necessarily call for extreme movement in a lot of the designs. So I don't know. I still kind of side with copper. I still think it's better. I just use aluminum out of cost effectiveness.
Okay, that's a good take. And how about you, Carmen?
Yeah, generally I agree with that. I mean, you don't want to use copper on something that, you're going to take it off again in 6 months, 3 months, 2 weeks, whatever, because it's incredibly expensive and it's a lot harder on your hands, actually. But aluminum, being a softer metal and more flexible, is good for deciduous trees, tropical trees, that kind of thing, because generally their bark is, more sensitive as well. It's thinner. They don't usually get that flaky plated bark. That's where I was going with that. Like conifers do. So usually you want to use something softer like aluminum. You're trying to avoid wire scars. So yeah, copper is stronger. We use annealed copper so that it's soft when you're putting it on the tree, and then as you move it, it becomes harder. So you kind of work harden the metal as you're applying it to the tree, which allows it to have that really strong hold. It also ages really nicely. The color, it's not shiny. It gets kind of a dark brown over time, so it kind of disappears into the tree. I've seen trees that have had wire on them for, upwards of 10 years, and that branch isn't going anywhere. That copper is holding it exactly where it needs to go. These are like slow growing things like ponderosa. So yeah, but copper, it's a little bit harder to work with because it does not have that flexibility. You can't reuse it like you can with aluminum. It requires a lot of strength, especially when you're working with really big wires, and you'll get some pretty nice calluses on your hands over time. But they both have their place. But if you're doing a lot of detail wiring, especially on conifers, copper's the way to go. If you're doing a lot of branch setting on ficus or tropicals or deciduous, then yeah, aluminum is really a better bet.
Great point. And I think that's ultimately the point is the rate of growth. So if you have a project that's being kept young and vigorous, so it's in a big pot, you're fertilizing it all the time, and it's running and growing fast, well, that's obviously not a project you want to wire with copper. That's even if it's a pine, even if you're growing a pine, if you're running branches extremely fast, and you're getting coarse growth, it's still going to cut in pretty quick. And so I'd still say it's more cost effective to use aluminum for development work. I didn't even really think about kind of putting it into words like that, but that's a good point.
Yeah, and young junipers and stuff will do a lot of aluminum for the initial twisting because they do bulk up really fast, and there's no like you said with the flexibility of trying to get some of those extreme movements, you can't get quite the same thing with copper that you can with aluminum. So it has a purpose in conifers, especially when they're really young.
Right. Yeah. The other thing I'd like to touch on too is with aluminum, like we were talking just a second ago about development, is I use two different wiring theories on selecting my thickness based on the rate of growth of the project. So like if I'm using aluminum, and this is only for aluminum, but if I'm growing something quickly and I want to leave the wire on for a long period of time, I usually wire with the diameter of the branch. So however thick the branch is, I will wire with equal diameter. And that allows me to stay on a lot longer until the branch can get to the adequate circumference to hold its own weight up. If I wire with the typical like half the diameter or 2/3 of the diameter, it tends to cut in faster than it sets. And I have to either rewire or, at worst case, I'm dealing with cut-in, which I try to avoid. So I usually say, I teach my students there's wire to grow and there's wire to show. So not that you can show it with wire, but that's what I mean is detail wiring and rough wiring. And rough wiring, I usually go pretty big.
Yeah. I found especially with aluminum, you need a way bigger wire than you think you do to move something that's growing really strongly and really thick. You need a really big wire.
Really big.
Yeah, I think another one of the things with using a bigger gauge aluminum, just like you said, the grow to show kind of thought, Mike, is the more surface area. That's kind of what it is.
That's exactly right.
It's, like you kind of think about it. If the wire is already smaller and then the tree's kind of just growing at a certain rate, I mean, it might end up swallowing it. I mean, I've definitely have picked through the canopy, like a thicker developing crown of like a deciduous tree, and I've been like, oh crap, there's a piece of wire embedded in this branch deep down inside of here. I just never able to get it out. And sometimes it causes issues and sometimes it doesn't. It just depends on the situation. I mean, sometimes crowns of old deciduous trees, I mean, they got to come off eventually anyway. So I'm just like, whatever, as long as I don't try to, air layer it off, then I got an embedded issue in there that might cause scarring on certain species. So,
well, that's the argument of the old classic argument of should you cut your wire off or should you unwind it? And that's the reason why. That's the argument for unwinding is that you won't leave any wire behind. I wasn't taught that way. I was taught, as I've traveled, I've learned that other artists teach many different ways, but we were always taught to remove wire. You are only cutting off the offending links. So like what's starting to cut in, you're removing that and you're leaving the rest of the wire to hold the branch in place until that then starts to cut in. Now, the pro to that is that you're not rewiring everything 1,000 times, especially on things that are growing pretty fast. You're kind of taking it off piece by piece. The downside, which I've heard from I guess Bjorn, one of his ways of teaching is that the Japanese feel that when you do something, it should look beautiful when you're done. So that they don't I guess, according to his nursery, is you don't have like loose ends on projects when you're done working on them. Even if the tree's still in development, it doesn't matter. You should take the wire off, rewire, and have it look good while it sits in the nursery. So, I think it depends on the person. It depends on the setting. Obviously, if you're just a grower and you're not interested in showing your trees, then I don't think it matters. But if you're trying to work to a high level and keep a museum level quality garden, then you should take it off and rewire.
Yeah, I prefer that method just because I tend to get lost or I tend to make a mess if I'm leaving parts of wires on. I just can't get this nice, clean of a look. But there are some cases in which, it's just this 1-inch section of this wire that's, connecting two branches. It's 24 inches, long, essentially. And sometimes just cutting that section off, it's kind of a picky thing. And the way that we go about doing wire removal is usually if it's under a size 14. Speaking of copper, so if it's under a size 14, we'll unwind it or take it off by hand. And if it's if it's 14 or above, we can cut it. Because if you're trying to cut a really thin wire, you're more likely to, nick your branch or cause more damage that way. And if you're trying to unwind a really thick wire, you're going to really screw your branch up that way. So gauging it kind of by thickness of the wire can be really helpful too when you're trying to figure out how you're going to get your wires off.
That's interesting because we don't use a lot of copper. So, we're never taught, don't cut it off your branch. The thinnest we're taught at Weigert's to ever use is 1.5 in aluminum. Because we teach our students that 1.0 is pointless. There's no point to that.
Yeah.
So we start out at 1.5. So that's cuttable. That's usually getting into the realm of cuttable. But I can see how if you're using 15 or you're using 20 millimeter, it's hard to cut. And I've tried it, it is hard to cut. So I do usually unwind that. I wanted to say something else on that topic about unwinding wire. Oh, the other thing is a big thing that we are very, very critical of in the nursery is getting the wire that's linking across the trunk off the trunk as soon as you can. Yep. So even before, you assume after about a month, your initial bend on that collar is probably close to setting on tropicals. And so usually it's a good time to, as soon as you think of it, get it off the trunk so that you don't have the chance of getting a mark on the trunk. Because I can tell you from experiences, it does take years, even on tropicals, to get it out of the trunk.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think that's a good bit of stuff there about wire. I mean, that's more than I would hope to say for it. Because I mean, it's always good to have the three of us talking so that we can all kind of bounce ideas off of each other like that. But if you don't mind, Carmen, can we go ahead and get the ad read for Bonsai Bar, one of our main sponsors?
This podcast is supported by Bonsai Bar, the beginner bonsai workshop popping up in breweries all across the Northeast. Bonsai Bar is 2 hours of tiny tree goodness disguised as a night out with friends. Come grab drinks, create a new tree, and watch as your friends and family get the bug for bonsai. Bonsai Bar is always looking for teachers and assistants, and you listen to this podcast, so you're probably already qualified. Bring your knowledge out to the bar. Apply today. Find event tickets, contact info, and more at bonsaibar.com.
Thank you, Bonsai Bar, so much. And thank you, Tim Arsenal, one of our Bonsai Best Buds. And the Tree EO, that's what he has on his signatures, I saw.
The Tree EO, that's
the
cute.
Tree EO of Bonsai Bar for sponsoring our show. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Getting back into it, just a little side dish, a little sidebar. Thanksgiving's coming up next week, guys. Y'all excited for Thanksgiving?
Yes. That's
Definitely.
nice. I like food.
Yes?
I think so.
Is
Holy
it?
crap.
Is it? Wait, let me double
Yeah, that's
check.
next week. It's next week.
It's hard to believe, though, because it's only like at the time of the release of this episode. I mean, it's next week. So just a little fun thing, guys. What Thanksgiving dish are y'all looking forward to?
None. I'm not a big Thanksgiving guy.
What? That's a hot
Get out
take.
of here.
Nah, I'm not. Hopefully I'll end up at Waffle House.
Oh, man. That's gnarly.
Yeah, hopefully, after the festivities, Lisa and I will go to a Waffle House to discuss.
That's amazing.
I hate cranberry jelly. I hate turkey.
Cranberry jelly.
I
If it's not the shape of the can, it's not Thanksgiving.
Ugh.
I have perfected getting it out of the can in the shape.
Oh yeah, you have to have it in the shape, but it's still vile and terrible.
Oh, it's delicious.
Yeah, I like stuffing for 2 seconds, and then I'm like, all right, take me away.
Stuffed.
And then I'm stuffed.
Then I'm stoked.
No, my least favorite of all holidays, for sure.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I give very little thanks on that day.
I mean, Thanksgiving for me, I think I like a little bit better than Christmas because you're not obligated to feel like you need to buy like a gift for somebody. It's just like a potluck normally for our family. So we just bring dishes and we just
I know.
gorge
I agree,
ourselves.
but the problem is nobody gives me gifts on Thanksgiving either.
yeah.
So it's trade off.
Yeah. That
Make sure
stinks.
everybody tell Mike on Thanksgiving. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you,
No,
Mike.
no, don't. I'll be grouchy. No, I'm kidding.
He doesn't want it. He's like the Grinch
you
of
keep your
Thanksgiving.
thanks.
What about you, Carmen? Are you anti-Thanksgiving as well?
I mean, as far as the traditional Thanksgiving holiday goes, I'm anti Thanksgiving, but I'm pro food, so I'll eat the food.
It's backfired way worse than I thought. No,
yeah, you didn't know what you were getting into there.
You didn't.
yeah,
My
holidays are
favorite
sensitive.
is probably green bean casserole. I love a green bean casserole. I love green bean casserole, man. It is so good.
I don't even like a green bean.
Oh, but you got to make it like you can't just do the canned green bean. Like you actually have to like finesse it a little bit, but
Yeah.
not too much. It's got to still like have the crispy onions on top from the can. But like if you
I
use
don't know
frozen
about
green
that.
beans or fresh, it's better. But yeah, so usually like we'd go to my parents' house for Thanksgiving. And, my parents would do a bunch of cooking. And then since we're in Portland, we haven't done very much for Thanksgiving. We've had, little Thanksgivings to ourselves. So we've decided, and then with COVID too, we were doing Thanksgiving on our own. So we decided to like do weird Thanksgiving. So like the first year for Thanksgiving, we just went to Trader Joe's and bought all the random like holiday foods and did like
Yeah.
Trader Joe's Thanksgiving. And then
That's a good idea.
our first year here, we did turkey burgers and sweet potato fries instead of turkey and mashed potatoes. So that was kind of fun.
Also a good idea.
Yeah.
Thank you. So
See,
this year, I'm not sure what we're doing this year.
I could get behind that. I
Yeah.
don't know. My mom's British, and we were raised on like roasts and stuff like that.
That's
And
British?
yeah, I'm not
Wow.
not
Does
not
she have
sold
an
on-
accent?
Not anymore, no.
Darn
But
it.
my grandma does, and my aunt
Ooh.
does. And yeah,
Very interesting.
Excellent.
yeah.
Yeah, but for me and Caitlin, we have pretty big family get-togethers for Thanksgiving every single year. I think it's much more traditional than what you guys are saying, where Mike's on the spectrum of get Thanksgiving out of here, and Carmen's kind of like, oh, I like the food. We're on the spectrum of like, yeah, it's Thanksgiving, so we're getting together for this. And so my dish would be the sweet potato casserole with the marshmallows on top.
Ooh.
Oh, I do like that. Okay,
I don't know
but
if
that's
I've ever
like
actually
dessert.
had that with the marshmallows.
Yeah,
Mike does
or
like
candied
Thanksgiving.
yams. Candied yams are good.
Candied
Oh
yams.
yeah, I love yams. Like
Yeah.
a sweet potato or a yam casserole. Dude, just pair that with the holiday ham and some of that dark meat turkey on the side or something like that. Ooh,
You know, I think I'm like 86 casserole. Like I'm not a casserole guy.
Oh, I'm 100% casserole. I don't
No.
know if I've met a casserole I didn't like.
I don't think I've met one I've liked.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
All right. If we're ever in person, I'm making you casserole and you're going to eat it.
All right, I will eat it. I will. And
then you're
on
gonna be
air,
like, "Oh, God,
on
this is
air,
awful."
I will like it. Oh my God. Yeah, I'll have to eat it on air.
yeah.
Mhm.
That's
be
gonna be a
good.
little ways from now. But we'll see when we cross
Mike
that.
Lane casserole challenge.
when we
Yeah, that'll
cross
be
that
for our
line.
segment when we eventually get big enough that we'll have
Or-
like a food segment.
Our 100th episode.
We're not even talking about bonsai anymore. We're just talking about food, literally now and in the future. But anyway, back to bonsai. How you guys ready for more bonsai talk?
I guess so.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for. So I mentioned earlier Japanese quince and Chinese quince. So I'll go ahead and start from my perspective on it. I know that's I'm sorry, the Latin name. Who's got the Latin name? Do you know?
Anomalies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
And the
welcome.
Japonica, maybe.
Well,
yeah,
that's,
Japonica for the Japanese one.
and then Chinensis. Yeah.
Chinensis. Yes.
So the Chinese one, from my experience here in Louisiana, that's the it's evergreen most of the time. it can be semi-deciduous in our range. It's got a larger leaf, much more scaly, like more of like a exfoliating bark. Comes off in like patchy looking flakes.
It's really pretty.
It is a very nice tree, and it gets a lot bigger than the Japanese component can get to. Whereas the Japanese quince is the one that's a little bit more like I guess like a brambly kind of like bush kind of growth habit plant. It has a lot more thorns on it. Sneaky thorns is kind of what I call trees like this, where you just really don't see the thorns at first because they're kind of like run underneath the leaf. The leaf is a little bit smaller. These can exfoliate though when they get to a certain size, but it's quite rare for Japanese quince to be larger. Whereas
now here's a question: are all Japanese quince Chojubai?
No,
nope,
definitely not.
There we go. That's what I wanted to know.
Chojubai is just one of the more desirable.
Yeah, that's the real
varieties.
dwarf, the super dwarf.
Yeah, and there's a Chinese quince that I can grow here in Louisiana called the Scarlet Red or the Texas Red. It's actually a pretty good quince, and it's not as I guess it's not nearly as compact as the Chojubai, but it has a very, I mean, that's why they call it scarlet, because it's got a very red flower. And we are talking about the quince. These do flower and they fruit. The Chinese one, not as much as the Japanese. The Japanese will put on the flowers. They flower throughout the year. We'll talk more about that in depth as we kind of break down their care and stuff in a little while. But yeah, they make these big giant fruits on them sometimes, completely out of proportion to the tree. If you're not careful, it could definitely sap the energy out of it, or break a branch, or bend a branch in a weird way if you're not careful. But yeah, that's as far as the base knowledge of quince go. And then, yeah, of course, the Chojubai is kind of like the end-all be-all, but not necessarily. But I mean, that is the preferred species in Japan for quince. So, Carmen, I feel like you, especially working with Michael, he grows a lot of quince. So tell us about Michael's quince growing operation up there.
Yeah, so we don't do a lot of just straight Chinese and Japanese quince. We do mostly Chojubai. And we grow them in all stages. So we start from cuttings usually. Root cuttings are going to give you more interesting plants than a branch cutting. And then we grow them from a cutting to a full plant, pot them up, and we'll sell them off to folks at that point. So we've got over 100 Chojubai growing at any one point, various levels of development. They're, on one hand, they're some of the easiest plants to propagate and grow, and they're one of the most, kind of finicky plants once you get them in a pot. They don't like to be too wet. They like a lot of heat, and they're in the rose family, so they're prone to all those wonderful diseases that hit the rose family. It's hard to keep up with, but they're gorgeous plants. They flower whenever they feel like it, multiple times a year. And they have a really interesting character to them. They're not really your standard, trunked bonsai. They're generally clumps and mounds and multi-trunk brambles, like you had mentioned, Evan. Wow. And they have a lot of interesting character to them. So they're a neat tree. It's definitely worth having something like that in your collection.
I always found them interesting. I don't work with them at all, but I've seen them in plenty of books and whatnot. And I always felt that it was an interesting example of how, like, there's rules, but the rules aren't what we always think. You hear all these rules about taper, Nabari, all that. And then you see these Chojubai, and I have to ask, like, why does the Chojubai get a pass? Why do certain things get a pass? You know what I'm saying?
That's a good question, though.
And
I think for Chojubai, it's just how they grow. They just don't grow like trees. They just grow like weird shrubby things. So the rules are a little bit different for them. But yeah, it's when you can get one that has a single or a double trunk or a triple trunk, when you actually have a trunk there, at that point, a little, taper matters a little bit more.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, still you can get away with some weird stuff.
And that's what I find so interesting in the hobby. I think that's what I've been thinking about more and more these days is like at what point do the rules not matter and what point do they matter? Like there's certain trees that Min Lo creates, not to get off topic, but certain trees that he creates that I've looked at that, they're ugly if you look at them from a technical sense, like terribly ugly. But if you look at them in a global sense, it's a phenomenal tree, phenomenal. And I have to ask myself, like, why? I always wonder, like, why do I like certain trees that don't adhere to the same aesthetics that my other ones do? And so I don't know. It's just interesting. Chojubais have always fascinated me.
Yeah, I think we do some wiring initially to set some of the first movements and branches, but I would say most of what we do is cutting, and that allows for, and it's helpful because Chojubai have that whirl of buds, so it's not just alternate or opposite. It's they're kind of all around the branch, so you have more options of what direction to go in when you're pruning back. And we do most of our Chojubai growing through cuts, which gives you a lot of that real quick movement change that you can't quite get with a wire.
Yeah.
Angular. I used to tell my students is angular as opposed to curved. You'll get those two different movements usually, depending on whether you wire or cut.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does quince look better with an angular structure, do you think? Or
it looks more natural, I think.
Yeah.
At the trunk base, when you start the movement, it's going to be a lot more curvy because the quince, especially the Japanese one, it's kind of they just kind of grow in these like tubular kind of just everything's kind of the same taper, unless it's gotten seriously long. And then so starting off when you set those first angles of wire, they are going to be a little round, and you can't really help that. And then you can get super angular towards the outskirts of the canopy as you start kind of refining it.
Well, if you just cut that first branch way back and it takes a lot longer to develop it, but you can get weird angles way back down. And that's one of the nice things about root cuttings too, is that a lot of times you'll be able to expose part of that root, and that gives you that weird clumpy look or that weird angular look that you can't quite get otherwise.
That's that's cool.
There is one Japanese quince in Michael's collection that is like actually has a trunk on it. And I think it's like the only one there that's like that, right?
Single trunk, yeah.
Which
single trunk Chojubai,
which is not common at all. I mean, how old would a Japanese quince like that have to be to even get like a good singular trunk, like a believable singular trunk structure?
Oh, I don't know. Probably that one's probably at least 50. I'm not sure. A good amount of time, a good long amount of time, because they don't even start really barking up until they're about 10. So to have bark that's exfoliating and chunky and and a big diameter trunk, it's got to have a lot of age to it. Yeah,
these are long-term project plants. They remind me of a Japanese black pine. Like you only get what you put into it. And it seems like you keep on adding and keep accumulating branch structure and movement and cutting back really hard and then growing again. But eventually you kind of like start asking yourself, like, when do I stop this? Kind of like one of those kind of trees. It's like, I've been doing this for over 10 years now. When is enough? And when is enough is enough, I mean, if you keep going, it's just going to keep getting better. So it's like almost one of those things like hard to stop and kind of determine where you want to be with the quince or Japanese black pine, where I just mentioned earlier. So, and I know that quince also have the capability of being slowly uncovered. I've seen that. I've seen some people develop in that way too. So like you can get a certain root structure out of them, and then you can slowly uncover the roots and encourage the roots to thicken as you kind of, make them emerge from the soil a little bit more over time. I'm sure y'all doing that as well, right?
We don't really, mostly just go off of our root cuttings for that. But you can create exposed root, especially if you're doing branch cuttings or something like that, where you don't have an interesting root movement. You can start to develop roots and slowly expose them over time to give you that exposed root look.
Yeah. I've seen a couple of people. You mentioned like the rose family thing earlier. It is reminiscent of how I feel like people who make rose bonsai kind of have to go around about the same thing as like there's barely going to be any root system on this, and part of it's just making exposed root structures to actually give the tree some kind of point of interest at the Nabari or Tachigari exposed root, and so yeah, I mean I think it's an interesting plant. Like Mike had said it just a moment like a little while back. It's like what gives this plant the permission to be awkward and break all these rules, and I think it's at the expense of being deciduous for all the line movement you get, and then that deciduous flower show that you can get as well is kind of where it comes up.
Yeah, we usually get at least 2 flowerings a year, sometime in the spring and sometime in the summer or fall. But I've seen flowers in January, February as well. They'll kind of have some big flowering moments and then some smaller flowering moments throughout the year. But I mean, they're gorgeous. They make really good shohin trees. They develop rather quickly into small sizes, and they do well in small pots. Once they're well established, they'll do well, and they're really just nice to add to a shohin display because they just have so much interest to them.
Mm-hmm. And as far as that was one of the things I forgot to actually ask is what kind of container do you think is like, do they need a deeper container? Because you said they don't like to be as wet, right?
Yeah, they like a deeper container. Like most shrubs or basally dominant plants, they like something a little bit deeper. So think like an azalea pot, or what are the other shrubs that we work with? Winter hazels, stuff like that. They prefer, a little bit more space for their roots.
Mm-hmm. And it kind of makes me think of other plants that you wouldn't expect to not want to be in a shallow container, because a lot of people think that we go into bonsai and we're going for the shallowest pot possible on most trees.
Right.
Which in this case we're not, obviously. But yeah, I don't know. I need to start getting more Japanese quince going. The scarlet red is kind of like it's just inferior to the Chojubai, but it does carry the same issues. But I mean, we can grow that remarkably well at the nursery. So I think Underhill, you can expect to see us to have some more of those. We have a couple of bigger clumps of Japanese quince that need to be worked. But like we were saying, they're just a big stringy mess. And so
lean into it.
Yeah,
lean into it. Yeah, exactly.
Make it
Embrace
messier.
the chaos.
That's one of the things, when we have students working on Chojubai, or even when I'm like working on a Chojubai and I'm like, oh God, I'm going to mess this up. It's like, you can't really. The Chojubai is going to be weird. The quinces are going to just be kind of weird. So just, let them be bizarre.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. And before we wrap up our quince and Chojubai, I know one of the other things is repotting. Talk about that really quick. Here in Louisiana, like I've worked with my friend Dawn, and she has a couple of Chojubai, or no, probably more like the scarlet red, because I haven't seen a lot of Chojubai here, to be honest. But the ones that she has, her scarlet red, she repots them in the fall.
Yeah.
Which it's one of those weird species where you do that. So we've got most of our deciduous trees in the springtime, and then we go into tropicals in the summer, and then quince is just like that one weird tree that here it prefers fall. I don't know if that's what you've seen there.
But I don't think that's super weird. Is I hear, and granted, I'm speaking from just like stuff I've heard and talked to other professionals, but I guess like fall repotting is like a thing on more than just that. I mean, I hear a lot about that. Even when I just got my butt kind of raked over the coals. Somehow I was teaching a demo in Florida, and I was talking about how we repotted junipers in fall. And somebody was like, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that. But when I was with Laurent, his primary advice was don't let it freeze. If you don't let it freeze, what's the primary issue? And so, I've been repotting stuff in the fall about the last couple of years, and certain things seem to do just fine. It's just, I don't advise fall repots usually for for most of the beginners, you know.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it has to do with you guys being in the South. So fall is like the second best time of year for root growth in plants in general, which is one of the reasons why in bonsai it's good to do a lot of fertilizing in the fall, because those roots are really, really, really active.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of like just general landscaping, gardening, that's a great time to put new trees in, to put perennials in, to do a lot of the stuff that you didn't get to do over the summertime. Because plants grow a lot of roots and can get established. So as long as you're not freezing, I think you're good. I think the issue really is when, you're leaving your trees outside or there's not a warm enough amount of time to recover, is when you really run into the problems. So yeah, like I think where you guys are, fall repotting makes a lot of sense. Up in, Oregon, Michigan, the northern part of the country, I probably wouldn't recommend it. You can always, there's, the best time to repot and then when you have time. So, there's always
right. I like that.
But in those cases, you have to be super, super cautious and careful and know what you're doing before you just, go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's, I wonder if maybe this, Carmen, but I would assume that the reason that fall and spring are the best time for repot and root growth has to do with temperature. Like, I would assume it's just too hot to get good root growth in the summer.
Yeah, I don't know the exact science behind it, but that's my impression is that, summer is the time for, fruiting and just getting that energy from the sun and, before they go into winter, as all the trees are pulling that nutrients in, for the winter time. It's just an opportunity to expand the root system.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Wait. Yep. From working and running a nursery at the capacity that I do, when we have so many plants and like you said, Carmen, like repot when you can, when you have the chance to. At the nursery, it's kind of a repot as much as we can, and then take the precautions for each and every repot, just whatever time of year it is. Absolutely no repot season is like midsummer when it's boiling, but typically even during the fall, like I'll have to do a lot of repotting on deciduous early, and just keep them in the greenhouse to keep them warmer.
And if you're working with younger material or stock material stuff in like more in nursery pots, you can get away with a lot more too. If you're working in a really shallow bonsai pot, that's a whole other story. Your old trees, your valuable trees, those are the priority to do at the appropriate time,
right?
The appropriate care, and everything else can get squeezed.
And you can risk it. It's all risk versus reward. Is it going to save you time? Is it worth saving time on that material? Why would you repot when you don't have to? But another thing is like, what do people mean when they say repotting? Like, what does? Yeah. Are you cutting roots? Are you not cutting roots? Are you changing containers to the same size container? There's like a million different variables when people see, like I just posted a buttonwood that I just quote unquote repotted, but I didn't touch any of the roots. I basically just pulled it out of the container and put it into the same size container. So that's the other thing to consider is what people mean when they say repotting.
Right. Yeah. Are you half bare rooting it, or are you just putting it into a bigger pot and adding soil around the edge? How much root are you cutting off?
Correct.
All of those things. There's so many variables.
We need more words.
More words.
More words.
And there will be more words to say about repotting, especially more towards the spring. But that reminds me, I do need to go ahead and drop in really quick our second ad read of the show. So yeah, I do need to mention about Bonsai Central, bringing the best to the Midwest is what they're going with here. I can laugh. Bonsai Society of Greater St. Louis is putting on the show. It's going to be May 3rd to May 5th, 2024. It's going to be at the Gateway Convention Center in Collinsville, Illinois. And there's going to be really amazing bonsai artists here featured. They're gonna have Bjorn Bjornholm. They're gonna have Tyler Sararod, Maria Heidick, Andrew Robson, Young Cho, Mario Stemberger. They're going to be doing their own little workshops with participants there. There's going to be really awesome material to work with, large twisted junipers, some Seka Hanuki cypress, fused trident maples, and some shohin classes and stuff. It's going to be an amazing time. There's also going to be a professional, formal bonsai display happening, and they're having a call for trees. So if you're listening to this show right now, this is a great time to go in and submit a tree that you would like to be in the show. There will be cash prizes for the show, so that's awesome. I don't know if they usually give out cash prizes at bonsai shows, but I tell you what, that'll probably bring the competition level up a little bit. So yeah, guys, go over to bonsai-central.com and go sign up for Bonsai Central coming in 2024, May 3rd to 5th. So
I went to an ABS show hosted by the St. Louis Club a few years ago, and it was excellent. So it's a great club. I know some folks in it. Sad I can't be there, but it's going to be a really, really, really good show.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys should all go and put trees in. Yay.
yeah, definitely.
Will anybody take my tree for me?
Can you ship it in a box to me?
Yeah, I'll have to. No, I'd love to show a tree. I just don't know if I can fit all that in, but that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
If they do it again in 25, I'll try to be there.
I'll definitely be at Bonsai Central this year.
Yeah, Evan's going to be there vending, so go say hi to Evan and buy his things.
God.
Do it.
Nice. That's
Woo.
cool.
Yeah.
You got to shout out yourself, man.
Oh, every once in a while I do. I'm trying to be humble.
He's
on
so
that
humble.
respect. But I do have a tree in the show too, but yeah.
Which one's going? I don't remember.
I don't know yet.
Oh, I remember it.
I've got 3 trees that are possible candidates, but right
Okay.
now I think I'm going to show my tall bald cypress.
Yeah, do
the
that.
flat top one.
I think I'm going to be doing my first vending gig in Houston. Or at the BCI thing. Yeah.
Yeah, let's go ahead and just talk about the shows we're going to be in next year too.
When is
BCI
next year?
is May.
April. No, it's in April.
Oh no, wait. May is April. Yeah, because I'm going to be at that show too, Mike. I'm going to be vending and doing a
sweet.
workshop as well. Yeah.
Oh, man,
Nice.
you guys are going to have so much fun.
We're going to be competing.
Carmen, just speed it up till to September and get on the road with us.
Yeah, come on, Carmen. You got to come to
get
that
on the
show.
road. I have to work. I have to apprentice.
Can't you take off for a little bit?
No, I've
For that show?
I wish I could. I've got one travel thingy I can do next spring, and that's pretty much it until till I'm done.
All right.
So, I'm being wrangled.
Yeah. BCI is it's going to be in Houston this year. It's going to be with the
Bjorn and Minlo, and
I've got
that's gonna be
amazing
great.
artists. This one too. I mean, I've heard that there's a good number of people signed up already. There also will be a show at this one as well. Are you going to be showing a tree at this BCI show, Mike?
yeah, I might as well. If I'm going to be bending, I might as well.
Yeah, I think I'll give it a shot too. I might put my buttonwood in there, see how he's looking next year around that time. But that would be a fun show to kind of do something simple.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah. And then we were also talking about this earlier before we started recording. We're doing a show that I started 2 years ago. We kind of missed it the beginning of this year, but we're doing it in March so that we can center it around crawfish boils and also celebrating, Louisiana culture with bonsai. We call it Say Bonsai, like that's a good bonsai. You know what I mean? So it's Say Bonsai, like the C, like the proper C with the little squiggly underneath the C and the dash EST bonsai, like bon.
Oh yeah, like French.
Say bon, yeah.
Say bonsai.
Say
bon.
bon. Yeah,
Well,
Laurent told me how to
clever.
spell it properly. I think I lost his note again, but I'll make sure to try to get that right. But yeah,
the odds that that's being pronounced properly are
it's
not good.
Slim to none.
Yeah.
so
That's not personal. That's just French.
that's
exactly.
That's just the way it is. But no, that's going to be March 30th. We just concreted that date. So, wouldn't you know, our feature artist is going to be Mike Lane. Good job, buddy.
I'm surprised.
You're just at all these shows. Come
I
on.
like, yeah, this is exciting. I got
Overachiever.
Yeah, I'm trying.
And you're bringing on another bonsai artist with you as well. Tell us about him a little bit.
Yeah, so Shannon from Coosa Farms is going to be coming. Shannon Salyer, and so Shannon is he's been in the game for a while. He's won several awards at national shows for his Shohin compositions, and in my opinion, I think he's one of the most well versed and well practiced Shohin practitioners in the country. I think his collection of pottery and trees is second to none. And I think he really, it'll just be interesting to kind of get his insight as well on trees that I have no idea how to grow. So it's really, he's a really good artist, a lot of knowledge, and it's just a great learning opportunity for anybody interested.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, it's going to be at Underhill Bonsai over here in Folsom, Louisiana. It's going to be, like I said, March 30th. It's going to be on a Saturday. We'll start early, probably around 10. We'll open the gates around 9:30, let people start parking, start at 10. We're going to have demos. We're going to have demonstrations with Mike and Shannon. And then we're going to have the good old crawfish boil event where we get people all around the table. We eat some, we're going to, peel the tails and suck the heads, as we say here in Louisiana. Dude, no,
so gross.
It's actually,
I know it's delicious, but it sounds disgusing when you say it like
what
that.
You gotta do. You gotta, yeah.
When you get into it, it
Culture.
becomes a europhobic. I'm still getting it wrong.
Do you eat the eyeballs?
What was that?
Do you eat the eyeballs?
Oh, you went there.
I'm gonna eat the eyeballs.
Oh man, because some people peel the tail and then they'll suck the juices out of the head and everything.
Yeah.
And my wife Kate, she's like, you gotta get the orange stuff out, and then you gotta get the brains out. But then the eyeballs, that's a whole other level right there. I don't even think about.
You're
doing
making
that.
this sound really appetizing.
It's awesome.
I totally want to go.
You know what I wonder though. Andrea, Eric's wife, she's Brazilian, and she showed me a long time ago that you can just eat a whole unskinned shrimp. Like you can just eat the shell and everything, which I didn't know. So I wonder if you could just eat the whole head and everything. No, it's not fun.
Could.
No.
You could, but
no. But I didn't. Who knew? Who knew you could eat a shrimp tail? I didn't know.
There are soft shell crawfish, but they're not the best. So you can probably do it there, because you can eat a whole soft shell crab.
I want a mud bug.
A mud bug. Do you want the mixed weird crawfish that are brown color that come out the ditch?
I do. Yeah, I want them out the ditch.
Yeah, but just so you guys know, we're not going to be eating miscellaneous things that we find in the ditch here in Louisiana. We actually have crawfish farms. They're very big, established old farms where they have been doing this for years. So we have the.
What if I want mine out of a ditch?
Then we'll just
and
get you
that's
some
when
ditch.
You go to Michigan.
We'll get you some ditch fish for
ditch
Mike.
crawfish.
We'll go get you one of those hardhead catfish.
Oof, no.
Can we go noodling?
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Do you guys do that?
We can. Do you guys do that in Michigan? Carmen?
No, I just seen it on TV. It seems like a Louisiana thing I would like to try.
We don't do it in Florida because there's other things in the water that'll eat
you got alligators.
But, but you do too.
Yeah, we can go noodling. Those too. Yeah, we can go.
I'm so scared to noodle.
And I don't get into black water. I don't do that.
Oh, yeah.
Murky water's creepy. I don't do that.
It's gross.
Get into the channel cat range and get down in there and get your fists in a big old catfish's mouth. It's kind of what you're doing there. Noodling.
That sounds really scary.
Catfish is one that's an ugly fish.
Oh yeah, and they're weird and they eat everything. They're like ghosts of the river.
They're cool. I like catfish.
Yeah, and their skin is not
slimy.
It's not scale. It's it's flat sandpaper, slimy, weird. Just a weird fish.
Interesting thing about hardhead cats is they actually have 3 spines, just like a stingray. That here in Florida, any fisherman avoids it. You won't even want to touch them. We if you wanted to scare somebody away, you just throw a catfish at them. I'm serious. Eric Weiger gave up fishing literally after one incident with a catfish. Was done, sold his boat, everything. Yeah, it got him in the hand and it got really infected. And he was like, I'm done fishing. Done with that.
Yeah.
Just don't fish for catfish.
Well, they eat everything. They're the bycatch.
Yeah, that's
Some
true.
fishes ain't nice fishes.
This is now a fishing podcast.
I mean,
Well,
don't
this
wanna
is
put it out
going.
there
This is
too,
going to be a different segment. We're just getting people ready.
Yeah, I really like fish, so we could talk about fish for a long time.
we could do a fishing podcast show.
My dad used to own a pet store called Wet Pet. He sold fish.
Oh my
That's
god,
really
That's-
hilarious. Wet Carmen's.
Wet
was
pet.
it your dad?
My dad, yeah.
Carmen's dad used to own a fish pet shop, an aquarium shop called Wet Pet.
Mike's repeating it to his wife in the background. Hey, Lisa. But yeah, dude, your dad's a hero for having a pet shop and naming it something really punny.
Yeah.
It's pretty excellent.
Yeah.
One other show next year. I mean, there's more than that, but one other one that I'm actually going to be at is
Whoa.
Pacific Bonsai Expo. I think it's end of October next year. Last weekend in October, they just set the date, I think, and it's at a different location this year.
Good.
I don't know if I'm supposed to be announcing this because it's not my job, but this is what I know. And it's
Spoiler
still going to
alert.
be in California, and I'll be there. So y'all should
Do they
go.
take entry?
Check it out.
Do they take entries from all over the country?
That's the one show that I've actually, like, the first time around, I was like, cool. And then I was like, do I really want to drive like
Yes.
30 miles?
Yeah, but I think
30
that's
hours?
the best. I think that's the best show in the country.
Ooh,
Yep.
hot take.
Yeah, I do.
We did.
Yeah,
we
it's
just announced all these other shows. We're like trying to hype up, and you just say that.
For this
Well, I haven't been to those shows, but you're right. Those are newer shows, but this is the one show that, from what I've seen, seems to really be like the newest kind of.
Looking
How do I
exciting.
word it? It's exciting. It's
high quality bonsai.
It's artsy, cutting edge.
cutting edge. That's the word.
Yeah.
That's what I was
Cutting
looking for.
Yep. So
Jonas
I don't know
and
when
Eric
submissions are going in, but keep an eye out for when to put submissions in.
Jonas
Yeah.
and Eric are asking for, and they did for their previous show, they're asking for more exotic and more unconventional displays.
Sweet. Oh,
So-
Yeah.
sweet.
That's in the
Not just your
criteria.
standard stuff. If you have something weird, you can put it in.
Like that bonsai I saw on a broomstick one time, or that hot rod bonsai where the deadwood was painted chrome.
Ooh,
Yeah, there's a lot of them though.
I don't
was
wanna-
it. That was the
yeah.
nationals. But yeah, all those weird ones. You know, more unconventional than that. We're talking like some Nick Lynn's stuff going on here, guys. Let's get it going. So, but anyway, yeah,
that's
those
cool.
There's going to be a good time. So, yeah. How about we kind of get into this time of year for like display and stuff for just a minute? How y'all feel about that?
This time
Okay.
of year for display.
Yeah, what's going on this time of year, do we think? Like for us in Louisiana, we had a fall show that was this previous weekend. And so it'd be like a mixed bag of like deciduous silhouette and then some, semi-deciduous stuff. But I think there's just like mostly silhouette stuff going on right now as far as how
Oh,
shows
wow.
go.
Well, Florida
Yeah.
doesn't. I don't know. Florida doesn't do as many shows as I would like, and we only really. There are some regional shows going around and whatnot, but they're usually very small, and we only have the one state show a year, and so. But we do have the opportunity to show year round. You know.
So this time of year, if you had the choice, Mike, what would you be displaying and how?
Bougainvillea. Bougainvillea would
interesting.
be ideal because they're blooming. They're about to be blooming their fullest, or at least very close to it. Like basically from now until February is the best blooming season for them. And so I
didn't
think
know
your
that.
odds of getting a perfect bloom are really much
Good.
higher this
Good.
time through February.
They're a cool weather bloomer?
No, it's all based
Dry
on
weather.
light. And yeah, they're more based on the light cycle and the shorter day. So more than anything, and drier, the lack of rain and moisture. So they really like that, and they respond well with blooms. So I would probably show those. I also work on a lot of evergreens. So like I would show any one of those, olives, buttonwoods, anything like that. But flowering stuff. A lot of our tropicals aren't seasonal flowers. They don't flower based on a certain time of season. They just flower on and off throughout the year. So, you pretty much can show a lot of that stuff anytime.
Yeah. How about you, Carmen? What would you be showing around this time of the year?
Well, we're pretty much out of fall color at this point. So something that had a nice silhouette would be really nice. Maybe a maple or Chojubai, because you can really see through them this time of year, and some of them are still flowering, so they're really, really fun to look at this time of year. The conifers always look nice. We're doing a lot of black pine work and a lot of trimming on the spruce and the hemlock, that kind of stuff. So after those are spruced up a little bit, see my
good one.
Once you spruce up the spruce, then those look real nice for a fall display too. But I feel like silhouettes are kind of a novelty, so now's a really good time to show them now that they've dropped leaves, and you've got that opportunity.
Yeah, the other thing I forgot that's just along those same lines, kind of more of a northern tree, is quince or kumquat. They flower, they fruit and come into peak fruit in winter. So
that's great.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
a lot of citrus do that, don't they?
They do.
Yeah.
And so coming up, right now they're loading with fruit, and coming up in the next month or so, all the fruit will be turning orange, and then you could, in theory, defoliate them for a show and just have the oranges or the kumquats in the silhouette. So
that's a great really call, cool. Mike.
Oh, now I want oranges. That sounds good. I haven't had an orange in a really long time.
We have satsumas here, and that just made me think about it. I was like, oh yeah, the satsumas do come into fruition this year.
Yeah, a lot of the one? Citrus. What's the other one?
I dropped a really great pun there, and Mike just talked.
Oh, my bad, man. What was the pun?
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Was it fruition? Did they come into fruition? Was that what it was?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's really good.
No, don't give me credit for it. Nobody heard it.
No,
I heard it.
Good, though. Yeah, I didn't hear it, but it's good.
Anyway, yeah, you were saying, Mike?
No, I lost it.
No, you're good. You're good. Because we do satsumas here. We also have blood oranges, which are just a staple
cool.
of Louisiana fruits and cooking, and stuff here. But the kumquat, the especially the quince, I'm starting to really fall in love with that plant. Unfortunately, they grow slow and they stay relatively small. But
that's good though.
Such an awesome little plant.
There shouldn't. I reference Laurent a lot because in a lot of ways he changed a lot of the ways I think about things. And one of the arguments I get down here, I work with a lot of elderly people, and one of the arguments I get all the time is, I'm not going to be alive long enough to see that. And I really do get that argument. And so over the years, I've catered to that argument, and I've put together PowerPoints to show what you can accomplish in a year or two. And it was interesting, Laurent didn't pull any punches, and he wasn't he made sure to inform them that when they are engaging in bonsai, they knowingly are signing up for something that can take years and years and years and years and requires patience, discipline, and perseverance. Mm-hmm. And, he was unapologetic in that aspect. Mm-hmm. And so
I appreciate that.
I can kind of appreciate that too, because in a way, you can't get into this looking for quick payoffs and think you're going to make good product or good art. It's just not going to happen. They don't go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. And so, if you're getting into this wanting to make trees like you see in the books, then it's going to be a huge time investment and a huge work investment and likely a huge financial investment, So those are things to consider.
Yeah,
definitely.
Absolutely.
Well,
so I love quince, man. I don't mind it at all.
Let's move on to the last segment of our show. We always go into the bonsai word of the week, kind of give everybody some happy thoughts and some I'm gonna put on my best NPR voice here to bring you guys.
That's an ASMR voice.
Yeah, it's best coverage.
Nice. Yeah.
Coverage for your bonsai week to think about these words. I don't know why I said coverage. It just seemed like I should put that word in there. But our bonsai word of the week is I'm kind of stepping away from using all the Japanese words. We're just going for bonsai words like terminology and things that we say a lot in bonsai. And this time I'm going to go with back branch in the bonsai structure, and why they are important, and what they are is it mostly to kind of bring us back to like the basis of the basis of our show here. Our show has always started as a bonsai 101 beginner friendly to more advanced audience here, so we always make sure to touch on these topics. But yeah, back branch, because we always have our Nabari going up into our Takagari, which is our trunk line, going into our first branch, our defining branch, or our illustrating branch, or our movement branch, whatever you might want to call it. And then you have your second branch, which kind of dictates the balance or the flow of the design. But then we always kind of forget about the back branch. Some people will build out their tree and they'll have like this skeletal, flat, two-dimensional tree, and they're like, something's missing, and most of the time beginners don't think about placing a good back branch, because it starts out as a branch that on your tree, from the correct perspective, you won't see it for a long time, especially if it's under development. Or you might see it because it will be like super long because you're trying to grow it out and get it to a certain diameter before you cut it back again. But there is part of the back branch that will not be seen for a very long time until you begin to ramify or refine that back branch to give depth and dimension to your overall appearance to your tree. So it takes it from a two-dimensional model feeling tree to a three-dimension, to a sculpture, a three-dimensional sculpture feel. So the back branch is super important. I mean, there's not only one back branch on a tree, but that one back branch always sets the expectations of the dimension and the thickness of the canopy and the crown. Or if we're doing something along the lines, something skinnier and taller, the back branch needs to be present to give more to, it could complement, the first or second branch, depending on the design of the tree. But yeah, that's my kind of summary definition of it. So I'll let Carmen start this time first for kind of talking about what you think about back branches.
I think you pretty much nailed it. The back branch is obviously a branch in the back, and there's generally multiple branches in the back of your tree. And like Evan said, you need them for dimension. And to really, a back branch, adding one or removing one can really change how you look at your tree. It can really give you a lot of depth and perspective. And so they're really important. That's pretty much it. I think you pretty much covered it. Mike, anything to add?
Yeah, they keep those damn birds from flying through.
Yeah.
No, the old saying is, it's funny because the old saying is you want to see the birds fly through, but modern or contemporary bonsai has kind of moved somewhat away from that. You don't see the large negative spaces that you used to see in older bonsai. And a big part of that, at least for me, one of the ways that I accomplish that is closing it off with the back branch. So the gaps that I make between my first two side branches, between the next two side branches, that gap I basically fill with foliage from the back, ideally. And so that way I have more undulations and a little bit of light peeking through, but it looks dense and full and compact, and doesn't look loose. So that I would add. And the other thing that I'd like to point out too is, since our last few discussions talking about like bonsai as art or bonsai as discipline, I've been thinking of like new ways to teach that maybe are broad strokes, that maybe aren't so like, it's got to be left branch, got to be right branch, got to be back branch. And one of the ways I was thinking of teaching is starting to explain that we're trying to just take up 3 dimensions. That's primarily what we're trying to do, because I've seen great trees that go left, back, right. I've even seen a great award-winning tree with starting with a back branch. And so there's, again, I think the most important aspect of it is that you are taking up 3 dimensions, and that it's not flat, and that it's not a fishbone tree. And how you kind of get there, I think you can be very organic, as long as you're not stacking branches and you're not kind of falling into some of the aesthetic pitfalls that occur in all art, crossing branches, things like that. So
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think you see this a lot, especially when you're dealing with Yamadori. or collected trees where you don't always have the choice of where your branches are coming from. So you have to just work with what's there. And that really makes you reconsider some of those rules of left branch, right branch, back branch. Like, what are these? Can they stack? Can there be a bar branch? Where the heck do you put this one? Like, it just becomes a puzzle rather than a creation. So I think you're right there. Looking at it as a way of seeing something in 3 dimensions. Is it balanced? Is there harmony? Does it make sense? Rather than necessarily, here's the rule book. Here's how you do X, Y, Z.
Right.
Yep.
Cool.
Very cool.
Yeah. So yeah, don't forget about your back branch. It could draw your entire design together, or removing it could create a negative space and a lot of interest and drama. Just depends on what you're going for. So yeah, thanks guys for going over that with me.
Can I say one more pun?
No,
we're not done yet, Mike. This is the
I was
pun,
gonna say you
the
gotta
pun segment.
put your back branch into it.
Holy crap, I like that one.
Yeah.
Put your back branch into it. Get some oh no.
Well, you guys all had them.
With that, like dad jokes.
Yeah.
One of my
dad jokes are the best.
One of my other favorite shows that I listen to, they always drop dad jokes like the whole show. That's like they're always trying to do that. And I feel like we're moving in that direction.
Well, Mike has to get some practice.
I do.
Yeah.
I really know a lot of really good dad jokes.
Okay. Just give me one.
Ah, shit.
Oh no, I can't think of
what's
one.
my best dad joke? No, I'll think of it later. I can't do it on the spot. It's you can't summon this kind of dad energy. It's got to just come.
That's true. It's just
tell you
what.
For the next episode that we do.
Okay. Got the best dad joke. Sorry.
Okay.
So I was in Home Depot and we were walking by the stud finders, and I stopped Lisa and I was like, hang on. And then I made it beep until it found me.
See,
she loved it. She was dying.
That's an action dad joke. That one you have to see in the moment for it to have.
Yeah,
you
have to be there. You have to be there.
Well, this is going to be when we get video. We're going to have video soon.
I got one. I got one.
Okay.
What's the opposite of irony?
What?
Wrinkly.
Oh God.
That's good. I like that.
Thank you.
So our next assignment for the next episode that we're all on is you have to do some more research on dad jokes. We all have. You have to deliver at least one strong one.
Excellent.
Right.
Can't wait.
I already
made a few on this one, but anyway, so it's bringing us to a close, but we always do a few shout outs for us here. So for me, you can go over to underhillbonsai.com and go look at my articles and kind of check things out there, see about me and stuff. Click on our Underhill Bonsai store. Like I said, you can go over to the Little Things for Bonsai People tab and buy some t-shirts we have left. And then we've got a couple of things on YouTube if you want to stumble over there and see some of my low quality YouTube videos. We're working on getting better ones up in the near future here. And then, I'm also on Instagram as well as, so it's Underhill for Instagram, and then Little Things for Bonsai People is also on Instagram. So if you hear critique episodes, you can go over to the Instagram page and it'll tell you in the description of that. If you see trees on there, it's because we were critiquing those trees. So go check that out, guys. And then for Mike, where can we check out your stuff?
You can check me out at www.kitsunebonsai.com. You can also check me out on Facebook or Instagram under the same name. And we also do have a YouTube channel as well. Haven't updated the YouTube channel in a while, but I try to update Facebook and Instagram daily. And so you can check me out there.
Excellent. And then for you, Carmen?
Well, it sounds like I have to get a YouTube channel now.
Everyone's doing it.
You can find me at Becoming Bonsai on Instagram, and I'm also on Facebook. And you can check out the Purple Pot Society, which is the National Women's Bonsai Group, where we work to inspire and educate women to get into bonsai.
Excellent. Yeah. So thank you guys so much for hanging out and talking with us and hanging out, listening with us. we participated on both sides here. Me and Mike and Carmen talked, and you guys listened in. So as long as we all take part of this, we'll get the job done.
My favorite type of audience is the captive type. Just has to listen. Yeah, exactly.
If you
Everybody
guys
just listen to
far,
me, and it's all gonna be fine.
That's great.
If you guys listen this far, and thank you guys so much for listening. Again, just shout out to our Bonsai Best Buds. Thanks for what's the saying, for holding it up. I'm so old.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah,
guys.
that one.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say. But yeah, thanks guys so much for supporting us and listening, and we will catch you guys on the next one. Y'all have a great one, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.